Judy, you're muted.
Excellent. Good way to start. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Wareham Board of Selectmen, August 23rd, 2022 meeting. May I have a roll call, please, Ms. Wertz?
Muted.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Roll call includes Ms. Whiteside, Ms. Wertz, Mr. Slavin, Mr. Chadwick, Mr. Bessie. All board members are here, as well as Mr. Bowen and Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. Let's see, Mr. Chadwick, would you do the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Here we go. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen.
Thank you. I'm going to go quickly to announcements. I'm also going to tell you that my dog is terrified of thunder and lightning, and she has me trapped in my chair. I don't seem to be able to move the chair around at all. Mr. Chadwick, announcements.
Actually, yeah, one. Just real quick, I'm gonna say what an amazing job all the fire departments did the other night, including Wareham and Onset. Of course, I was there as a Marion firefighter. Phenomenal job by the chiefs, the men, the women. It was a lot of work, and we were there for, I want to say, a good 7 hours, almost 8 hours. So I just want to make that clear that they put in a lot of hard work the other day. And in my 21 years in this service as a firefighter, I've never seen a fire so big. So thank you to all departments surrounding, and especially Wareham and Onset.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin, announcements.
Okay, this is basically till the end of August. August is a month in which almost all the organizations at state, county, regional level take the month off. So basically, it's been very quiet, and I have no announcements today.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie, you're muted, but do you have any announcements, sir?
Yes, just one. Only 2 days left for fall registration for Wareham girls softball. They are still looking for a handful of participants in each one of their divisions. So if you have a child that is interested in playing softball this fall, reach out to Wareham girls softball. They'd be glad to have you.
Can I just add to that? I know that a lot of people have been looking for secondhand equipment, whether it's a baseball mitt, a softball mitt, cleats, whatever. And I know that many of the leagues are providing outfit help, if you will. Am I correct, Mr. Bessie and Mr. Chadwick?
Yes, they do as much as they can, and they definitely rely on the support of others that have stuff laying around to donate. So if you do have stuff that you could donate to those leagues, they'd be greatly appreciative of that.
Thanks, Mr. Bessie. Ms. Wertz, announcements?
Yes, I actually want to call attention to an email that we got either today or yesterday, and it was from Barbara Sullivan, and it has to do with courses, presentation that's going to help parents understand what to do to protect your children in terms of them being abducted, etc. They will actually be holding a meeting Friday, August 26th at the Onset Foursquare Church. And it's an education issue. And I will tell you from my family experience, this is something that everybody who has young boys and girls, I would encourage them to go to. And I have not seen this called out on the town website or in the paper, but I do think it's something important to make sure that the public knows it's available if they want it.
Great, thank you very much. Also, you might note that Miss Gately, who's the presenter, is actually a graduate of Wareham High School.
Really?
Yes, she is native of
Yes.
Wareham, so that's great.
So,
I just want to echo the compliments from Mr. Chadwick. I happen to know several firefighters. I know that it was an extremely difficult fire to fight
mhm.
because there's only one hydrant. And actually what was happening was the pumper trucks were hooked up in series and to one hydrant out basically
Wow.
on the highway and sending the water through the pumper truck next to the next hose and then further forward. There were also some water vessels, but you can't put salt water through the other, land equipment. So it was amazing that there was no further damage. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who pitched in. And I know there was some injuries, but it could have been a whole lot worse. So thank you. We'll go to appointments and reappointments. The first one and the only one that we have this evening is Wareham Affordable Housing Trust, a term to expire June 30th, 2023. May I have a motion, Mr. Slavin?
Yes, I make a motion that we appoint Patricia A. Wertz to the Wareham Affordable Housing Trust for a term to expire June 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Is there a second to
Second.
that motion? Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Thank you. Now, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes, except for I would say that we want to make sure that I'm enrolled with the last name spelled correctly. It's W-U-R-T-S, not C.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Not a problem. If I could bet on it, I'd be really wealthy.
I'm sure you would. Okay. Kind of like Mr. Schultz and his misspellings.
Yeah.
And I vote yes. So the appointment is 500. The paperwork, I believe you'll have to wait probably until Monday to have these signatures there.
Okay.
I'm going to ask that Scylla, who is Priscilla Porter, be let into the meeting, please. And Mr. Sullivan, I know that you have some screen sharing to do for Ms. Porter. Ms. Porter is here this evening to talk to us about the Imagination Library programs, which Wareham has been involved in for several years. And it's, I think, one of the finest things that the town does for kids. Good evening, Scylla. How are you? Or excuse me, Ms. Porter, where are you? Have you let her in, Mr. White? No?
I can see her sign and she may just be muted. I can take down the screen share until she's on board if you want me to.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, great. There you are, Scylla. Okay, can you unmute yourself, Scylla? Excuse me, Ms. Porter. I've known Ms. Porter for a very long time. I actually had her two grandsons as high school students in Wareham High School, both very nice young men. So if you can unmute yourself and talk to us about this fabulous program. Excellent. There you are. We see you. Now you need to unmute. Down at the
How's that?
That's excellent.
Okay, good.
Okay,
It's a challenge.
go ahead, Ms. Porter.
Okay, all right. This is a program the Friends of the Wareham Library sponsor through the Dollywood Foundation, and I'm sure everybody's heard of Dolly Parton and her philanthropy. This program sends books, one a month, to young children from birth until the month of their 5th birthday. Wareham has it. You only have to live in Wareham to be part of it at no cost to the families. I want to emphasize that. And it doesn't matter what your economic situation is. This is open to all Wareham children. The only requirement is that you live in Wareham, you're a resident, and you're not yet 5 years old. The books come monthly. They're all chosen by Imagination Library. We have no input. It's totally, once your child is registered, they take over. The books are beautiful. They're wonderful books. If you've been to the Wareham Free Library, our children's librarian, Mrs. Hickey, would be happy to show you examples of the types of books that are sent out each month. We raise the money. The cost is $25 per child. The Friends of the Library raise the money to sponsor the program. So I want to emphasize, it is free to all families. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you very much. Is there a second screenshot, Mr. Sullivan? Or is that what you have? Did you?
The other's a pamphlet with registration, but doesn't really, I
Okay.
get it. I don't think that's the most
Okay.
important. What we can do is try and plug that somewhere on the town website if you want.
I think that,
Okay,
that would be a great idea. Thank you.
if I could say, we do, in September, there will be 2 ads run in Wareham Week. One will be for those that might want to contribute to the program. The other will be about the program, and it will also have an enrollment form as part of the advertisement.
Excellent. Obviously, or not obviously, you can sign up online. Am I correct?
No,
No,
you
you have-
cannot.
You can't go to the library?
Well, unfortunately, Wareham has 5 zip codes,
Oh.
and 2 of them overlap towns. So the enrollment form can be mailed to the Friends. The address is on there. Drop by the library at any time. And I do the enrolling, or another member of the Friends do the enrolling.
Where can they pick the forms up, Miss Porter?
At both libraries. In front of the clerk's office, there are forms. At the OBA office. And Wareham Pediatrics has them also.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Any other
You're welcome.
questions, ladies or gentlemen? No, thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, if I may just say,
Yep.
you have 2 people on the board who are part of the sports. Any young families, please pass the word along, because I would love to see more children participate.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Good night.
Night.
Good night. I'm going to ask that Kat Jones be let in to the meeting, Mr. White, so we can have her do her request for the Harvest Moon Festival, please, which would be item 7F on the agenda. And there she is.
Hi all,
Good evening, Ms. Jones. How are you?
I'm well. How is everyone?
Good, thank you. Can you explain what it is that you're looking for? We know that not only do the selectmen have to okay your request, but also Mr. Sullivan does, because it not only entails town property, it entails town roads. So why don't you let us know what you're looking for?
Absolutely. So basically the Harvest Moon Festival is an all-day event, a family-friendly event that will include a car show that will take over the pier in a closed-off section of Onset Ave and Union Ave. There will also be about 25 to 30 different craft and merchandise vendors that will line Onset Ave on the Quahog Republic side and up Union Ave. We'll also have some food trucks. We hope to have a chili chowder stuffies contest, and we will have to set up a tent for that, most likely by the band shell. At the band shell, there will be live music from noon to 5. Also across the street, since the street will be closed, we'll be utilizing Bayview Park and the gazebo for live music as well. We have a medieval group that's coming to do some demonstrations. We have some kids activities, stilt walker, a juggler, a balloon twister person, face painting for the kids. And in the evening after the event is over, we'll be hosting our annual fireworks display, but that we couldn't have in July. So we figured we'd compromise and host this in September. We've met with all the proper town departments and everybody seems to be on board. We all seem to be on the same page about road closures and things of that nature. The permit from the fireworks company has been given to the fire chief for his approval. And we just need some money and some volunteers and some good weather.
Can you tell us the time of the festival, please?
I can, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. for the festival itself. There'll be a little bit of lag time between 5 and about 7:15. The fireworks will probably go off around 7:15. Sunsets at 6:37 that evening, and 7:15 was an agreed upon time between myself and the fireworks company. That could change by a few minutes, but we'd like to keep it as close to that as possible. We are hoping to include a Wampanoag tribe as guests to close out the event with a group dance and sing, but that's to be determined. So it's shaping up to be a very full day of events.
Okay, I'm looking at part of the application and it says starting at noon and ending at 6. And you just said 10 a.m.
Yes.
Then you'll have to just amend that
Okay.
portion of the application. This must be the one that you maybe did online. Yeah, you did it on OpenGov.
Yes. I
Okay,
did all
so-
the permits online this year.
Yeah, so could you just, go to the office maybe tomorrow and just change that start time to 10?
Absolutely. Yep.
Okay, and would the roads be closed after 6?
Yes. Typically during fireworks, they close the streets at 5 p.m. With a hard close of the streets at 7 p.m. So for this particular evening, they're going to basically close the streets down at 6 p.m. and then reopen them probably around 8 o'clock. The fireworks is about a 30-minute show.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ladies, any one of the Board of Selectmen members, if you have a question, would you please raise your hand? Mr. Slavin?
I just want to make note that myself and Paul Gerard are actually running the car show piece to this. We're starting that at 10 o'clock in the morning. And as basically stated, we're going to take part of Onset Ave, block it off, plus the pier. And we're expecting probably 250 or 300 cars to show up anyways. And they'll be there for part of the day and they may go home or they may stay for the fireworks. So because of my involvement, even though there's no financial involvement, I'm going to abstain from voting.
Thank you for that explanation. The rest of you have any questions? Please raise your hand. Okay, I see no questions. Mr. Sullivan, I know that your departments have all been checked off and signed up and okayed. There will be Board of Health permits required for the food trucks, and that's indicated in your permit.
Yes.
So, Mr. Sullivan, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I think it's great. Kat runs great events. Always appreciate it. And I think there's one thing we're working on that she's asked for, which if I can't get to her, I know next time I see her, I'll be in trouble. So I'll try and get it.
Aha. Okay.
No, no. It's a
Okay.
pleasure to work with all of you. Thank you for your patience, and I'm available anytime for questions. And if you want to volunteer, come on over.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I see no other questions,
Thank you.
and so it's September 24th with a rain date of September 25th.
Correct.
And I would need a motion from the Board of Selectmen, and then the town administrator must sign the application as well, but that's up to him to do that. So I'll accept a motion to grant as requested, with understanding that the time will be amended to 10 a.m.
Yes, thank you for that.
Make a motion.
I didn't realize it said dude. Sorry.
That's okay.
Make a motion that we approve the request for the Harvard Moon Festival from the Onset Bay Association.
Thank you. For the 2 days,
Second.
this September 24th or the rain date September 21st. There's a motion made in a second. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
Mr. Slavin.
Abstain.
Thank you. And myself, yes, 401. It is approved. Thank you, Ms. Jones. And as I say, tomorrow or, sometime just get that straightened out. And
Certainly will. Thank you all very, very much.
have fun. Thank you.
We will.
Excellent.
All right, take care all. Thanks.
Thank you. I'd like to go to
Okay.
I think they kicked Judy out, not Kat.
Yeah, it does look like that.
Fair.
I don't know. Okay.
Well, Kat, welcome to the Board of Selectmen.
okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If I were Kat, I think I might be a little bit offended that they kicked me out instead of her. I mean, you know what I mean. Anyway.
Yeah.
When Mr. Turner was before us a couple of weeks ago, he was talking about raising the fees on several items, which we approved effective October 1st. He also suggested that we raise the lot determination fee, and he explained it all at that time. So what I'm looking for is a motion, and he actually wrote it up, and Mr. Bowen actually put an addendum to it. So unless any of you have any further comments, when Mr. Turner was explaining it, he said that, he's at some point in time actually spent 7 hours looking to determine whether a lot was appropriate or not. And the lot fee would be that the building department would receive a fee of up to $150, the review fee, and that the applicant could be hire an attorney, a engineer or a designee who would prepare the documentation for presentation to the building department. So I think that's the explanation. So I would accept, unless you have any questions or comments, I would accept a motion to approve the lot determination fee of up to $150
Okay.
as presented by Mr. Turner. Go ahead, Ms. Wertz. Do you have a question?
So I'm looking, no, I have a comment. I'm looking at the lot determination fee piece of paper that was sent to us. And the comment on it is from Mr. Buckland and saying, I support the change with the option that the applicant or another designee may prepare the documentation in place of an attorney. I voted to support this increase in fees, but I did express in our meeting that I was concerned about how the fees would hit people of middle to lower income. So I went online and looked up what legal fees are running in Massachusetts now, and the average real estate fee from a lawyer right now is $279. So you're talking about if we don't approve what Mr. Buckland has put in, you're talking about people having to pay roughly $1,000 by the time it's done to work with a lawyer. And so what I can't tell is I'm guessing the amendment that we make a motion on is to change the option that the applicant or another designee may prepare the documentation in place of an attorney.
That would be the motion. That's correct. So the motion would be to approve the fee of $150, understanding that the applicant could use either an attorney or another designee to prepare the documentation.
So I make a motion that we approve the $150 fee for the site review by the town and also approve that the applicant has the option to hire an attorney or a designee or prepare the documentation for themselves, and that is acceptable.
Thank you. And your motion said lot determination fee, right?
Lot determination fee
Thank you.
versus
There's-
site determination
Yeah.
fee.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion to approve? No further discussion. I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie, you're muted,
Yes.
and Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. We will let Mr. Chairman know. Oh, I guess we should have an effective date of October 1st. Is that part of your motion?
and we will
That would
also
be the same
include in
as-
the
yeah.
motion is effective October 1st, 2022.
And that was part of your second, right, Mr. Chadwick?
Yes.
Okay, and that was part of what you all voted on. Thank you very much. That will keep it consistent with what we did in terms of the raising of the fees. The next item on the agenda is something that we must do from time to time, which is appoint forest wardens. I would call them forest fire wardens, but that's not what the law says. And we have two recommendations in front of us, one for the Wareham district and one for the Onset district. So I would accept a motion to appoint each of them individually under Mass General Law, Chapter 48, just exactly the way it is on the agenda.
So I make a motion that we appoint for forest wardens according to MGL Chapter 4, Section 1, for the Wareham District, John Kelly, for the Onset District, Jeff Oswald.
Is there a second to that motion?
I think there's chapter 48.
It is Chapter 48, Section 1.
That's what I did say.
Didn't come through that way, sorry.
Okay, I thought that's what you said.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Even though technically both the Wareham district and the Onset district are separate municipalities, it is the law that the selectmen of the town make this appointment. So that is why we are making it. I will go for a roll call vote now. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, 500. And we will let the gentlemen know that they have in fact been appointed. Next would be a discussion and a possible vote regarding the assignment of police officers at the precincts per the state regulations. The state decided in its wisdom to require that the selectmen make the choose who the police officers are at the polls. And Ms. Bissonette talked with Mr. Bowen. Mr. Bowen, perhaps you could enlighten us as to what we are actually recommending that we do. At the moment, it is our responsibility under the law. And that we don't, well, anyway, Mr. Bowen?
Madam Chairman, what you'd be doing would be delegating your authority to the police chief to make the appropriate determination by a law enforcement professional. And of course, at any time that you wanted to withdraw that delegation of authority, you could do so. I would suggest that because you're doing this by delegation, it would require a unanimous vote.
Thank you. Chief Correa, would you choose to address us on this? Because we would be passing the responsibility onto you. Is that okay with you, sir?
That's affirmative. That would be fine with us here at the Wareham Police Department.
Thank you very much. So the motion would be to delegate the authority under Election Advisory 2020-22-01, the changes to the state election laws, to the Chief of Police of the town of Wareham. Right, Mr. Bowen? Good. That was your Ms. Swartz. May I have that motion, please?
I know, but I'm thinking about the wording again. I make a motion that the select board
I have to keep, I'm gonna say this. Everybody keeps calling us select board. It has not yet been changed under the law, so to keep it.
I make a motion that the selectmen
Board of
approve the delegation of, to the chief of police of Wareham, the responsibility for appointing and assigning policemen to work during town elections
Or any elections.
or any elections.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Excellent. Any further discussion? Mr. Slavin, do you have a question?
Yeah, we should add to that motion per state regulations, please.
Okay, per state
Per
regulation,
state regulations.
election advisory 22-01 changes to the state election laws.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is that acceptable for your second? Thank you very much. I will go
Yes.
then for a
Yes.
unanimous vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes,
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes,
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes, it is unanimous. We will send a letter to you as well as the town clerk, chief, letting you know that we have designated that authority to you under the law, if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. To Jim, item 7E, Mr. Slavin is more or less the expert on the marijuana laws in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We have before us information about whether we choose to limit the number of the delivery establishments here in town. And Mr. Slavin, I'm going to ask you to explain what the law is, please.
basically, the Cannabis Control Commission broke out delivery, actually two different versions. The real reason for this is because the minorities, as they list people who don't have the large financial resources that the original people that got into the marijuana business had, have been basically locked out of the marijuana business. And one of the ways that they were getting people to come in at those lower income levels for be able to get a business was the delivery program. The Cannabis Control Commission, approximately 2 or 3 weeks ago with the governor, made some changes to the laws, etc. Again, giving what we call, I hate using the word low income, but people of limited financial means, priority and access to these particular type of operations. What I would suggest is for today that we put off till the 13th when we meet again to get final answers because everything is not finalized. I don't know whether or not what they've proposed does actually allow us for a limit on delivery or not. And I want to make sure what we do will actually pass the Attorney General's rules and regulations, because unfortunately, the Cannabis Control Commission did not give us finalized answers. And with that, I would like to add, even though it's not on the agenda, marijuana cafes, et cetera, to that May 3rd, excuse me, I'll get there, September 13th agenda item too, because that's been approved without regulations, and we need to work on that as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask the board members if they have questions of you. I would ask that you send me an email tomorrow specifically with what should be on the agenda for the 13th, if you don't mind.
Will do.
Thank you. Do any of you have questions, Mr. Slavin, that you might ask Ms. Wertz? Go ahead.
so Mr. Slavin, I was sitting in on the planning board meetings for most of the discussions when the select board voted to limit a number of businesses in each of the categories that already existed. So if we look at choosing who gets to open a business by their income or their ethnic background, are we looking at increasing the number of businesses we agreed that was good for the town or not?
No, it has nothing to do with the existing businesses that we've already approved. That would have to go through town meeting, et cetera. What we're talking about is this one particular delivery program in which the state has basically put a recommendation and oh, I'm not sure how to word it properly, but they want to emphasize people that have had less availability to get into the industry to get in there.
So
And
bottom line is they want to increase the number of delivery organizations we have within the town.
not necessarily. What they're looking for is to have opportunity for those people who have been locked out of the industry, have an opportunity to get in. It does not mean we have to increase the number per se.
Thank you.
So so I just have a question from both Judith and Alan, to Mr. Slavin and Miss Whiteside. Should we be including, when we consider this on the 13th, that it could also be additional businesses?
That are pre-existing,
That not a pre-existing, that we're looking, if we don't meet what we need to meet with the pre-existing owners, are we then required to increase the number of businesses?
no, that's not what we're talking about at all.
Okay,
Eliminate completely what actually exists now, what we put through. You're talking strictly about a delivery program, which the state has asked through the Cannabis Control Commission to open it up to people who don't have the high financial availability, to give them some priority. But it has to be for new applications that's available. If we were to put a limit of 3, it'd be a limit of 3. We would not increase it.
okay, thank you.
All set, Ms. Wertz?
Yes,
Okay, great, thank you. All right, so we will put this on the agenda of the 13th, and Mr. Slavin will be sending me a clarification for exactly how we should be putting that on there. Item 7G is a discussion and possible vote regarding use of town buildings, and I'm going to turn the meeting over to Mr. Sullivan, who had some ideas a couple of weeks ago, and we asked him to return with more information. Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I think it was, you asked me to come back for maybe some questions, some info. Though I know there was some concern about the parking at the town hall location. So I'd like to show you just sort of a quick screen share, if you will. And excuse me, my wife's out of town, which allows me to make some poor decisions, such as buying chicken korma before the meeting, and I did not ask for the less spicy version. So actually saw me drinking milk earlier. It's getting me good. Okay, so you may have to move some of the faces around on your screen, but this is just what I wanted to show you. It's just a real simple setup, if you will. So in the upper left-hand corner, you have the town hall. There's a visitor parking design that we had put together just 5 years ago or so, when we were thinking about how to get more access to the site, which basically comes in, can bring about 16 spaces. You can increase it a little more, a little less, but that's really a nice simple entry point. So that would be visitor parking. You have this turns into a police entry and exit only. The blue outline, I think you'd consider that some sort of fencing. I'm assuming a little bit more of an attractive fencing rather than, concertina, razor wire or something like that, but something rather attractive. It allows for some more parking spots in here. This is approximately 40 feet from the blue line to the curbing over here. Also allows, one of the other things we did was, if you remember down here between the middle school sidewalk and the parking areas, it can get a little narrow. So we took approximately a third of the southern parking lots, if you will, brought those into it, and that way you have a much larger space to go for a one-way. And that means Viking Drive, you've got one way in, you've got a way in, way out. That doesn't change. This becomes a one-way. You wouldn't have enough for 2 lanes, which is fine. One of the other parts is over here by the multi, that becomes an entry point. You can change up the parking however you want to design, so you can actually go in, so the parents can come in here, drop off, drive out and go out this way, which is actually a nice traffic flow when you think about it. Over here is a former playground that, if you remember, a few years ago, it was so run down, we had the equipment removed. And, that's something that if you wanted to, you could put some more playground equipment or whatever you want for green space. We have opened up it up a little bit. That was going to be where we were putting senior gardens. Obviously, that was put on pause with everything going on. We wanted to have them ADA accessible. Would have been pretty neat. But so that was one of the, this is just an outline of just how some of the parking would work. So I know that was a question for some people. And any thoughts on this?
If you have a question of Mr. Sullivan, would you raise your hand so you can go through me? Mr. Bessie?
So I'm just quickly looking at this, and maybe the information isn't available yet, but so we see all the parking spaces that would potentially be lost to the future potential police station. Do we know exactly how many spaces that would end up leaving for, summertime, Wareham Gateman baseball? I know that, a lot of times they fill the parking lots. So what type of impacts would it potentially have on events that might happen either at basketball or maybe at a future use of the other buildings? What type of a potential impact would that have?
Thanks, Mr. Bessie. Go ahead.
When you think about potential impact, I guess theoretically it's whatever those parking spaces would be, but I'll see. Let me see if I can pull this other thing up for you, because I'll give you a better idea of the space you're talking about. So you've got all this over here. What people are forgetting about is the parking over off of Palmer Field. You also have down here is the pump station, plus all this space that's kind of green space that can be utilized. You've got the middle school parking. You've got a lot of parking in that area, including they use the library because that's some of the off hours. So as far as parking, yes, this whole area gets swamped, but that's like anything. It's like going to the beach. The parking lot closest to the beach gets filled up soonest. So
I just have a quick question. It's following up on what you were saying, Mr. Bessie. If you go to where it says former playground open space and you sort of go up to the right, we actually own that parking lot.
Right, there's an additional parking lot over here, which
is town owned.
You're correct. And I can't say that conservation would be keen on it, but I always thought it's why we're not connecting through here with and open that up. And I know it's wet, but a little bridge area, and this is kind of an aside. I just thought that'd be really nice to bring that together, and you add it to sort of the basketball, and you make this a usable parking space for some of these parking lot for some of these functions.
Thanks. Sorry, Mr. Bessie, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to point that out. Go ahead, Mr. Bessie.
No, I just wanted to more emphasize that there is other parking spaces and areas that people can park. So I just wanted to bring it up so it could be mentioned, so that anybody that might be listening to what's going on understands that we're not just looking at a little parking lot where all the buildings are, but we do have ancillary spaces that people can park for different events if that comes up as a question from anybody in the future about what parking would look like. So thank you for answering that.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mr. Bessie? You're all set?
No, I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. Any of the rest of you have any questions, please raise your hand. No? Mr. Slavin?
Not really a question. It's really just a simple statement. Mr. Sullivan's fiduciary responsibilities and skills have been, most people don't realize how strong they've been over the years. In 2015, we expected to have a real financial disaster, as most municipalities did. He was able to weather his way through it. And then in 2018, 2019, we also projected, including the finance committee, that we expected another round of real problems, and it didn't happen. Again, because of his abilities to work with his department heads and all the employees have been exemplary. And the idea that he's come up with of an overall project hitting 4 out of 5 to 6 different areas that we need to take care of is excellent. We've all talked about individual ones by ourselves, but never to sit there and take an overall view and come up with a solution for the majority of the problems. That should be a substantial savings and cost to the town and the taxpayers. So I just want to make my feelings known that I'm really not just happy, but I'm just, it's time that we really think about how we do things. We have properties that we own. We have different assets. We need to use them. And this is just an excellent way to do it. And I just, again, want to thank Mr. Sullivan for coming up with a program that resolves a lot of issues for the different departments and the people in the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Wertz, yeah.
Mr. Sullivan, I attended the meeting yesterday, and one of the conversations was if we're between 2 sites, one site has the what do you guys call it, T or P or R group as part of the building. It was going to be built off-site, and there was a question about the town hall area and would that not be included or be included. And then there was a conversation about having enough space to put that separately down in that area if it was called for. And Mr. Sullivan, I'd like to understand your feeling about that.
Yeah, on the simple design that I put forth, it did not include an EMS station as attached to the town hall.
Is there space to put one unattached down there? Is there enough, does the town have enough property to address something like that if we needed to or wanted to?
I guess I'm going to give you the worst answer, yes and no.
Story of my life.
You know, you can figure out certain things down on some of those back parking. Could you create something that's a drive-in, drive through, so you don't have to worry about backing up? Yeah, you could put something together. Do I necessarily think that you have to combine the 2 buildings together, police and EMS? No, I wouldn't say that's,
Thank you.
Necessary.
Great. Any other questions, Ms. Wertz?
No.
Okay, thanks. Mr. Sullivan, I think if you don't mind, could you put the second schematic up that you had? I think you showed us the town hall plot, if you will. Do you have another one there?
Yeah, so this was just this is real simple. Obviously, Nadia from Payne Jones, that's her bread and butter, did an amazing job. And this was just something I'd been putting together. You can even see some of my dabs over here on checking some of the colors. But this is just so people understood. I want to show this light green area would be what's for the COA. And this is one of the old schematics for the building from when they were doing some of the wiring in there, including, and then we had scanned this in. It actually says polling location and such. So just changing this around. But one of the things looking at was trying to get as I said, the COA, their little kitchenette area, plus next to the kitchen, plus having them near the cafetorium and plus the gymnasium. We had heard that was one of the things, they want to be able to have areas for whether it's chair volleyball or I'm assuming indoor pickleball will be foisted upon that, and you have the cafetorium plus meeting space, which is why I don't think this makes a good selectmen's meeting space if you really want to have that set up for the cafeteria forever if you're doing a week in, week out meeting. So that's where I'm just going. We've covered where the COA is and some of the amenities. Does everybody see that? All right, back here too, you have remove portables. That's the portables are in rough shape, so those would be deleted. This also gives the opportunity to have the bus however we want. You know, it rises up a little bit, but you can do certain things, including creating a turnaround or what if you have to for the Gatra bus to be able to deliver more a closer to you know where the COA is area is from these two different spots.
So essentially you're creating a separate parking lot for the COA.
Yeah, you could create the whether it's the parking or you know up close. I think you could also extend some other back here, but that's something for the you know the long term. I think we could get that again, whether it's parking or going around. You've got a pretty big, beautiful tree out there that I'd like to keep as an amenity towards the building if possible. Yeah, go almost have the circle around that. So if you're going parking, you could go back here, but circle through the whole thing because it's pretty attractive. Still would leave room for, I know they've talked about senior gardens here, so you still could do something along those lines. So,
Thank you.
this area down here and sort of the burnt orange, if you will, that's where we really talked about doing some of the sort of, if you will, the sticker sales, you know, having the joint operation there. Also has the ability for DNR, whether you want a little DNR office in there, so they'd be moving out of the multi or just depending on their future as well, what we'd be looking at, what their needs would be. The Nantucket Red, let's say, would be we've got for the finance department, plus their some of their storage. So it's I know that they were concerned about, you know, they said, hey, it's not so easy just to open up in the walls and such cinder block structures. I understand what they're talking about, but you know, you can do the headers above them, which is steel header, that if you're inserting such windows. So certainly not impossible. There've been some comment that this building's not set up for office space, but I think this is sort of, I don't know. I don't want to go down that road, but it's you know, there's certain things you'd need to do. You'd have to drop obviously some more ports in and such. That would be part of the cost. It is set up to run wires pretty well. So, you know, I think all the pluses that they're talking about before are translatable, if you will. So one of the other really neat things is the town clerk has to have a space that is basically, for some of the documents, that is a vault, if you will, that cannot have a fire suppression system in it. So you can really create this space. If you remember, that's sort of the one door into it, which is that room with all the, it's a really good space for it. So I'm just going to keep on going around, and this is where some maneuvering, just kind of thinking about it says. We thought about this as the selectmen's meeting room. Again, this is more of a square space than it looks on here. It is the same square footage as your current meeting room. So it gives an ingress and egress here also to the outside. So that's very good for the public meeting space. So you've also got, we thought that this could be then the BOS office plus some, plus the mail room, but that's where, you know, you'd continue on to whether it be administration plus a meeting room plus HR. Now, remember, when in between the town hall right now, you've got between the auditorium, room 24, 27, and then you also have across the way in the multi-service center for meeting rooms. So one of the big things we lack all the time really is meeting rooms. So I think you may at the end of the day do a little bit more of a shuffle to have a couple more, but this is where I thought now move up to the other yellow area as another meeting room over by where the planning and Board of Health and inspectional services is. So this blue area, we're talking to Mr. Underhill. It's one of the ways you're bringing the wires into the building. So this would be a good spot, especially that gym area to create the server room. We are the server hub for a lot of the activities. It would also, I don't think people understand. I've got staff that's directly inside the server
Yeah.
room right now, and it's not a good environment. So I'd be able to also create an additional office space for them over here. Not the biggest, but I think their ears and hearing will certainly thank us for it. So it's the pink, the E2 would be the CDBG office, so the grants management. And I was thinking bringing it right there because that's where we have a lot of residents come in as well. So, and that kind of links up with the land use division. So I thought it'd be really good to have them right there. Again, this is the other meeting room. Then you'd have inspectional services plus planning. Inspectional services, if you've gone down there, I've got everybody pretty well cramped. Plus I've got the director in that dungeon area. So it's not the best setup. Then the red is the Board of Health that we'd have for their whole setup. And then one of the things we have, but we really don't do the setup at Town Hall. You look at the space that's in the cafeteria right now for all the record storage, but there's also outside of yourselves, some of the land use, so talking about planning, zoning, conservation. We have a lot of other boards and committees that don't have a real proper storage space as well. We've had people that are housing their documents in their homes. And it's a real easy way to get historical knowledge. I mean, if you think about it, sometimes you're seeing things on eBay from the 1800s that, it was because the people during that time, they brought their work home and their volunteer work home. So I'd love to see having an area that would be accessible for the certain boards and committees, whether it's historic, anything like that, and also have the areas locked in there. So locked shelves. So although you could get in there, almost anybody that was a member of the board or committee, they would only have access to their own documents. So you wouldn't have to worry about things. And these are, I understand when you're thinking about an amazing, exciting use that record storage obviously is not. But it is the functional reality of our business. So, that was just some of the things going through. I think you could see some changes in this area as to whether it be what you do with Board of Selectmen or some of the meeting rooms. These are cut up a little different, the admin, the HR area. So we'd have to see how to utilize those. But what are your thoughts on this as a functional town hall? And one of the other things I'm just looking at, I think if I migrate things a little bit around, I want to make sure I have space for talking to the COA where they'd want the nurse for visiting. This was the nurses station down here, but I also want to make sure that we have the veteran service agent covered for theirs, and however that has to be. I mean, the Mr. Gottschalk is he's so excellent. He said, "I just need a place where it won't rain on my head." I think but obviously they deserve better than that. But it's and really the thought is that you're a resident, you can come in and it's one-stop shopping for you. Also, I'd like to see it so, we could even expand some of the meeting areas potentially, so that on a night when you're having multiple meetings, it's also that, while we have Zoom, we have other functions, you can physically get to a lot of the different ones. So it's, and for all the reasons, this makes a good a good COA space with the one floor. It also makes it good for our residents that still come in person for their services that, you know, aren't using the online, that are coming to town hall physically. So it's, I think that's one of the thoughts behind it.
Thank you. If you have a question of Mr. Sullivan, please raise your hand. Mr. Bessie?
So just a couple things. One, I really, just the last statement that he made, I really think it's important that all these services are together, but it's accessible to the older community that, you know, coming into the current town hall, you know, they're on one level, they need to do one thing, then they got to go upstairs or they got to go downstairs. So I think the one level thing is an amazing feature of the potential change. But in all of this, has there been discussion? Would there be any change to the fields that are out there? Because we know that there are some programs that do use the fields at certain times a year for baseball and flag football and things like that. So has there been any discussion about potential changes in that, or would that still stay the same and accessible to those programs going forward if this was something that was to happen?
Yeah, that's a good question. I had not talked about doing anything, if you will, with those fields. I think keeping that sort of green space, if you will, plus the playground equipment. I don't see any problem having that by town hall. You know, there's people that come utilize it, so I wouldn't see any issue. Plus, you know, who knows what's going to happen in the fields or how you would utilize them in the future, but I don't see them, we wouldn't need those fields for anything in this schematic, if you will.
Okay,
All set, Mr. Bessie?
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? Please raise your hand or comments. I see none.
Yeah, and I do, you know, I want to, is this the most perfect, you know, idea or setup? I'm going to say no. Perfect is money's no object. You can do whatever you want. You can buy, set up, and you do that. We obviously we're not in that scenario. I think this, like I said before, gives the best utilization for our assets. And there's obviously, as I said before, there's a lot of people that are working hard, have continued to work hard. This is nothing, you know, this is no slight on it. It's just when you know, we've always thought, you know, the thing that you need to utilize the town as a whole. I mean, when you looked at it, it was almost, the library almost made your best senior center and such, because it's a mini version of the Deacon's school, if you will, with its layout and the way things are utilized. That's what you'd be talking about. We talked about moving back and forth, but there was obviously a lot of obstacles to that because of, you know, because of the lack of a better term, the love that was put into that building as well. So I mean, so my job, I guess, is to bring forward some of the things that, you know, make it say why people call me a Grinch on the nicest of days. So
Thank you. Ms. Wertz?
So, Mr. Sullivan, I'm gonna use the word assume, which we know is deadly, but if I listen to what we heard today, it seems to me that what you're recommending is the best use of both properties is for the Deacon's property to become the town administration offices along with COA, and for the town hall to become the police facility. Is that your feeling about it?
yeah, I think that is the best utilization of our assets with the financial costs that could be associated with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Slavin?
I also want to bring in and ask Mr. Sullivan explanation for the multi-service center. I know we have plans for that as well, and I believe that's what we're going to call the community center. And there has been some discussions about a day or so ago about finding a way to have a recreational program for boys and girls, not a boys and girls club, but There has been some initial discussion also for that particular location, plus other ideas that Mr. Sullivan has. So we're really looking at 3 buildings for reuse.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about that, that's the component I don't want to lose, is that this does give us the option to have that, if you will, the community center that has some right by our schools with some of the after school programs, some other things, especially the summer. So it's, and I get it. There's some feelings about the multi-service center and such. That was, as everybody, well, I don't know if everybody knows, it's that was the elementary school. It was what, a high school.
School.
You know, so it's yeah, there's a few people that told me, oh, when I was in there, oh, this was so-and-so's classroom, and you know, it's they like to explain some of the shenanigans they were doing. So but that's, I think that's a fair utilization of that building as well. It's been our multi-service center. That's our community center. I'm hearing what the, you know, what the seniors are saying about wanting an alternative space. And I think it's, this is how we get it done. You
Thank
know,
you.
and I understand there's, you know, the site, the DECA site is also being looked at for the police station, and there's a lot going on, but my goal is to get the stuff done, I guess.
Thank you.
And that's,
Thanks. Ms. Wertz, can you mute yourself? You have a really delicate mic. It's picking up a lot of, like, even when you put your hand down and you did. Yeah, thanks. Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Sullivan? No? I think I will, I'll add my 2 cents worth. It seems to me that in this time where we know we're going to be facing inflation, we know that costs are going up, we know the price of everything has gone up. It is in our best interest to try and do the most for the least, for the greatest number of people that we can. That, as selectmen, is our job, is to look out for all of the citizens of this town. To me, this suggestion from Mr. Sullivan takes 2 buildings that, one that we, the Board of Selectmen, are in charge of the disposition of that property. And disposition doesn't mean disposing of it. It means that we get to choose what happens to the building. It seems to me that Mr. Sullivan's suggestion has ticked off a lot of boxes, or checked off a lot of boxes. It's given this Council on Aging their own space on one level. And that's to me huge. The older I get and the less mobile I get, it's certainly an important consideration to me. So I think that using space appropriately and freeing up space, because really that's what you've done with the multi-service center. You've made a huge, basically not empty building, but you have a building that now can be repurposed for community use, overall community use. So I'm very impressed with this thinking outside of the box idea. Gentlemen, ladies, Mr. Slavin?
At this point here, we basically, our job is to provide direction and guidance. You know, the town administrator takes care of the day-to-day. We have actually a policy number 8810, which we haven't updated in a long time, which is the selectmen's master plan. And even with a master plan, it's probably 30 years old. It still tells us that's what our job is, and that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I would like to go ahead and make a motion at this point.
Go ahead.
Thank you. My motion would basically to move forward that our town administrator, Derek Sullivan, move forward now on his overall proposal for plans for reuse for municipal purposes of the following properties: 1, town hall; 2, the DECA school; 3, the multi-service center.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll
second
second
that.
that.
Okay, there's second for a discussion. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz.
Yes,
Thank you. And myself, yes. I guess you have heard us, Mr. Sullivan. So it is a unanimous recommendation to you. Thank you. We will now move on to item 7H, which is to vote to release previously approved executive session minutes of October 5th, November 9th, and November 16th, all of them in 2021. They were previously approved. And so the fact that you may or may not have been a selectman at the time is not germane to how you vote on it because they have been approved. We just are now looking for a motion to release them. Ms. Wertz?
I make a motion that we release the executive session meeting minutes previously approved and held for October 5th, 2021, November 9th, 2021, and November 16th, 2021.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion on the motion to now release those minutes? Hearing none, I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself. I will note for the record that they have been reviewed by Mr. Bowen, so that we are sure not to be releasing something that is still under discussion or whatever. And then we will go to, but we don't have any 48-hour business. So town administrators report, do you have anything you'd like to add, Mr. Sullivan? How much rain did you get over there?
It was bad. It was, and I know that sounds awful to complain about it, but unfortunately, everybody did their rain dance at the same time. And between yesterday and today, it was a lot coming down. So the 495 was bumper to bumper for a while with everybody with their flashes on. So it's at least we didn't have the puddle like before, after, well, depending on which side coming off Cape of the Sagamore Bridge. We lost a few cars on that.
Oh, exactly.
But yeah, it's obviously we've been working on a couple of these different things, so I won't bore you tonight.
Thank you. Liaison and initiative reports, board comments. I'll go to Mr. Chadwick first.
None at this time.
Thanks. Mr. Bessie,
None at this time.
Mr. Slavin,
Nope.
and Ms. Wertz. I didn't hear you, but I watched your lips. Okay, yeah, thank you, and none for me as well. So I would ask for a motion, Ms. Wertz, to approve the minutes of July 26th, and we were all present at that meeting.
make a motion that we approve the meeting minutes for July 26th, 2022.
May I have a second to the motion?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All were present, so I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes,
and myself, yes. 500, and then the executive minutes of August 9th. Mr. Bessie was not there, but I would ask for a motion to approve and hold, please.
making a motion that we approve and hold the executive session meeting minutes for August 9th, 2022.
Thank you. May I have a second? Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? I will go for a roll call vote. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
you should abstain, sir. You weren't present. And it's impossible to watch an executive session because we
Well,
don't
so,
take.
so all right, I just want to get some clarification. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. So in the meeting that I went to with the MMA, one of the things they said that we could vote on minutes and yes to the minutes because we're just approving that the minutes exist and not necessarily the contents of the minutes. But we're
Excellent.
just We're just
Excellent
approving.
question. I'm going to ask
So-
Mr. Bowen to address that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Selectman Bessie is correct. In fact, I can recall dealing with a town, not Wareham, where they hadn't issued minutes in 10 years. Several members of the non-issuing board were dead. And the only way that minutes could ever be released was to have the live members and the replacements for the dead ones actually vote. And none of them had been to any of these meetings. So they had to go back and reconstruct minutes and vote to approve them. So much for the old story. Ron's absolutely right. You're not approving stenographic transcripts, so it's not necessary that you have been to the meeting. You can certainly have that custom, and I believe that has been your custom, but it's not a legal requirement. So
Okay.
the point is that you're issuing minutes, not stenographic transcripts.
Thank you. Mr. Bessie, how do you choose to vote?
Yes.
Thank you. And Ms. Wertz?
Yes.
And myself, yes. 500 to approve and hold. Thank you very much. I don't see that there's any, thank you, Mr. Bessie, for that clarification.
No problem.
Other committees are requiring that their members actually view the records of the meeting
Mhm.
before they vote, which I think, my personal opinion is that you should do that, but if that's the law, that's the law. It's awesome. Mr. Slavin. It's that time.
Motion to adjourn, dear.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
No debate, and so I will go for a roll call vote, please. Mr. Slavin,
Yes.
Mr. Chadwick,
Yes.
Mr. Bessie,
Yes.
Ms. Wertz,
Yes.
myself, yes, we are adjourned at 8:16. Thank you very much, Wareham. Good night, Wareham, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening.
Good evening.